on the tape, I'm sure they can see it. So if you want to add into your texts here, after the word et kol hayakum, you're going to draw a straight line. So that's the psik. So if you notice, right here, we're going to add an entire straight line right after that word et kol hayakum, because that word is separated out from everything that was before.
And that's part of the notations.
And that's part of the notations. When you have a string of munachs in a row, you get those. And if you want to do it while we're already writing in, after the very next word, asher, we have another psik there.
Okay, so go back to... Okay.
So, et kol hayakum,
right,
with a line after it.
Yeah.
So, et kol hayakum has that munach,
Right.
which is going to separate itself out from things before, but by the way, it's got a line after it, it's got a psik, so it's separating itself out from the things that are afterwards as well. So all the rules that were established before are no longer going to be there. So it's going to separate itself out from the previous science, and it's going to say that it's not going to continue afterwards.
That's brilliant. Because yukum is kayam.
Mm-hmm. Both
So everything
things that exist, and by the way, things that have risen up. So all the things that you've established that are going to continue to grow, they're no longer there either. Asher, the next word, that, with another psik after it. So we're going to have that same thought. It's going to separate itself out from the things that are before, think to go forward, and then separate itself out again because of psik. All conveniences and installations that man had prepared for his plans, whether in his proximity or at a distance, have suffered a simultaneous destruction, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So again, those things that were natural, or those things that were constructs, ended. They separated themselves out from the way that they were originally made, and they're not going to continue afterwards. But the next munach, al pnei, doesn't have a psik after it. So this is going to separate itself out from things before, but this is what's going to continue on. Over the face of, number 4, al pnei, everything located over the face of dry land was attacked by water with the same strength, as shown by the shape of the related reading mark. So these are things that are going to have the damage by the water, and then what's left from that is what's going to continue. Ha'adama, the ground, with a revi'i. Revi'i says this word can stand by itself. Even though it had all of those helper notes before, it's going to stand by itself as a singular concept. Even the shape of the ground had undergone a deep alteration beyond recognition, as suggested by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So the ground now is going to be something that's different from before. The geography is going to be different. So the ground in and of itself, its abilities, its potential is going to be different. It's going to stand alone now as something different. Me Adam, from a man, with a mahapach. So this is going to scoop everything that's come from before and focus the concept into what's going to go afterwards. Just as the cause of the disaster started from a man, so did the punishment affect him first, along with his imaginations and efforts, as expressed by the shape of the reading mark. So all the things that are going to be destroyed, we're going to give them in order now. The first one is from humanity, from a man, and because he was the source of the destruction, he is mentioned as the first to be destroyed. And from him, the wave of destruction is going to flow over everything else. Ad behema, till a cattle, with a pashta. This is a little bit of an emphasis on the word, and it's going to lead forward. That imposition of the man extended further, till the cattle, which was close to the owner, sharing also a similar fate, is confirmed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the man is focusing forward onto those things that the man made subservient to him, the cattle, those things that he raised as domestic animals. Ad remes, again with another pashta. So we have something here that again is going to look forward. We're going to slightly emphasize the word, but we're moving farther down the line of influence from man, obviously. Till a creeper, number 8. The punishment also spread till a creeper, which operated only by instinct rather than by purpose, but it too was of service to man, as specified by the double directional reading mark. So you'll notice that the word remes has 2 pashtas on it. So part of what an insect does is it just crawls through the dirt because the dirt is there, and that's what an insect does. Mm-hmm. But by the way, ultimately it's serving to be able to make the field fertile. So in some way it's serving the purpose of the man. So we've got this double intention. It's doing its own thing, but by the way, so we have the cattle which are directly serving man, and we have this other thing that's both serving its own purpose but indirectly serving man. So that's why it gets a double note. It gets 2 pashtas on the word remes. Ve'ad off with the munach, so this is going to separate itself out and look forward from there on. So it's a kef katan, the shape of munach, and till a bird. The destructive action of the flood had spread to all until a bird that might have been subject to man's adventures, as illustrated by the shape of the reading mark.
So why does the off get a munach if behema and remes get pashtas?
So behema is something that is directly serving man. Mm-hmm. Remes is something that is indirectly serving man. Mm-hmm. The bird can really live its life by itself and not necessarily influence man at all, or it can still be a construct that's serving man. So it's got some separation. You can have a bird that, is in the Antarctic and it isn't serving any people. Whereas you can have birds that are close by that are still serving you. So it's got that little bit of separation. So that's why it's got the munach. But by the way, it's going to look forward to hashamayim, of the skies, with a katon. So this is a 2-part note. Might be a little difficult to see in the text, but it is the 2 dots on top of each other. Of the skies, number 10. Also, flying birds of the skies, which were remote from man's habitat, were included in his catastrophe, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So those that were close to people and might have been of service to man, and those that were far away and really were just living their lives by themselves, those ones too got folded up into the destruction. Vayimachu, and they were erased with a tipcha. So this is going to look backwards at everything that's come before and folded in. They were all integrated by interdependence under the lee of the man, and they were erased together with their master, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the destruction which flows back to Me Adam, that flows back to the primary source of the corruption in the first place, is going to enfold and ensnare everything after it, and they are all going to be erased. Min haaretz, with the stabilizing etnachta, with the note that tells us that there is some stability and perhaps something looking up from there. Just as they all derived from the earth, they also vanished, as if they had never have lived there, as conveyed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. The erasure leads to a point of stability where there is no longer any corruption. So the changed earth now has a point of stability, a point where you can start to build a base again and start to go up from there.
Can I ask, just to go back to number 3, Asher, in this pasuk, in the previous pasuk, Mareh Yaakov translates that as the apparatus, the artificial laboratories and experimentation situations that were created. How is that derived from this word?
Other than context, you're saying?
Yeah. Like, is there anything about the word, the shorish of the word, the meaning of the word?
So, Ashir, is it with an aleph or with an ayin, Victor?
It would be with an ayin if it's his wealth, his accumulation. Osher is happiness with an aleph.
Are you looking at the Yisrael?
I'm looking at number
We're looking at Asher.
In 723, and also previously
So
722.
the question is, we're taking the word that and we're deriving that it's referring to something different from the word that when we put it into another context. And the question is, how do we know that it means what we've ascribed to it in this sentence? We are deriving a paragraph from each word, so the direct meaning of the word really has to be defined in context rather than focusing on the narrow meaning of the word itself. So other than the fact that it's standing alone, separated out from Yakum and separated out from Al Pnei Hadama, so not only is it something that doesn't have to do with the conditions that were established, but it can't also deal with the condition of the land. So it has to be something that's separated from that. So one would be, Yakum would be, he's defining it here as tests and experiments, which are the unnatural things, and Asher, he's saying, are just the conveniences, and then Al Pnei Hadama is just even the features in the terrain. So we're going from the more corrupted things to the medium corrupted things to the least corrupted things. But other than that, I don't see a reason why he's defined one rather than defined one as one rather than the other. But he is following a sequence: most corrupt, middle corrupt, least corrupt. And then we talk about the destruction happening to the major source of the corruption, things that are close to it, things that are a little farther away, things that are even farther away, and we get the stability of Hashemayim and the stability of Haaretz. So those things separate out from the pattern of destruction. And we're going to continue number 13. And was left Vayishaer with a darga. There remained alive only a remnant of creation, and was left only a small part of a great number, which were saved in the ark, as demonstrated by the shape of the reading mark. The darga, let's go back to, again, the introduction. Number 16, darga is a chief who specializes as a mediator, capable to adjust various situations by stages. So again, it's going to be like stairs. It's going to tell you that there are levels of things. It's compromising with respect of details, but also decisive and unyielding in an objective that's going to lead to something else that's going to come after it. So it's going to tell you that there's going to be something that's going to come after it, and it's going to tell you that it was perhaps staged. So we have just those things that are on the ark that are left, and the things that they got separated from went away in stages based on how close they were to the corruption. Adam, Behema, Remes, Oh. And the things that were left got separated from those things that used to influence them in those same stages. And what was left, it's going to lead into Ach Noach. Only Noach with a Tavir. Tavir is again that note that has the dot that's sheltered by the mercha that's around it. So we have this arc that's separating, very good, an arc that's separating things out with a protected dot in the center. After all generations since Adam, only Noach and his family represented the, quote, man of creation, giving rise to all races and nations to make a new civilization, as depicted by the shape of the reading mark. So the protection that was granted goes from Noach, and from him everything else that was sheltered is going to continue on to fruition. Va'asher, and that with the mercha. This is something that's going to lead forward into the concept that's going to go after it, but is not separated from the things that are before. Animated species, vegetations, and that Noach had preserved, gave a start to the world by successive multiplication as signified by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the things that were sheltered by Noach are the things that are going to continue ito, with him, with a tipcha, and it's going to focus backwards and complete the thought. For this purpose, Noach took along with him various seeds and roots of vegetations for eventual replanting and rehabilitation of the productivity of the ground, as emphasized by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So the things that Noach had selected are the ones that are going to complete the sheltering and again go on to fruition from there on. Bateva, by the box with the stabilizing etnachta. By the box, Noach had not only protected the life of those who came to the ark, but he also secured the nucleus of the new world and provided the source for its perpetuation. By preserving the plants and the species that are going to go on, Noach is setting the way of the things that are going to be left from here on in. And we'll read the pasuk out loud. Vayimach et kol hayekum asher. Sorry, I'm going to start again, but I just want you to notice that the psik afterwards, you're going to notice how it truly separates out and isolates the word. Vayimach et kol hayekum asher al pnei ha'adama me'adam ad behema ad remes v'ad of hashamayim vayimachu min haaretz vayishaer ach Noach v'asher ito bateva. And just a grammatical note. Normally the emphasis on the word would be vayishaer, but because the word after it is a short word with an emphasis on the first syllable, on ach, not ach, you can't put the syllable on the ch, so the syllable that gets the accent for the word ach has to be the aleph. So because of that, we have the concept of nasog achor, that the note on the word before, the emphasized syllable, has to be pushed back because of that short word. So because ach has to have the accent on the aleph, the accent for the word vayishaer has to move back to vayishaer. So again, normally we would say it's vayishaer, but the ach pushes it back. So vayishaer ach Noach. So again, that is a Torah construct that is based on the notes. That is not something that you would find in normal grammar or normal Hebrew reading. But it is part of the poetry, and I think it's something that we need to appreciate, and we'll try and point it out again in the future when it comes up again.
Sorry, and why is the emphasis on the ach?
Because it's very difficult to say ach.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
it's strictly for linguistical purposes.
And we're going to continue with Pasuk Kaf Daled, 24. We're on page 43 at the top. Vayigberu, and they strengthened with a meracha. This is going to slightly look backwards, but mostly focuses forwards onto what's going to come next. In spite of the mighty downflow, the level of the flood waters still kept rising, and they strengthened the vast destructive effects, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So you would think that as the water gets deeper, if you've ever been in the ocean, on top of the ocean, the waves are pretty violent and pretty moving, and underneath, the water tends to be calmer. But we're saying that the situation here is different, that the destructive force, what's happening to the things underneath, is getting stronger as the water gets deeper. So again, we're focusing on the unnatural aspects that are happening here. So Vayigberu, and they strengthened, is talking about as the water gets deeper, the destruction to the land, which is now deep underneath the water, which you'd figure would be a calmer place, isn't in fact calmer. It's getting stronger. Vicky had a comment?
Yeah, just that we talk about the mind coming from above. If it is superheated water from the core of the earth, or heated from the earth, and or just the great chasms of water that they're under pressure, they would force all that movement, and they're coming from below, not above.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought, because it was coming from below. It's not just water.
They're coming both
down.
from above and below.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that goes for the destructive forces.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't think that's unnatural at all if it's
So,
coming.
I mean, it's not unnatural in terms of a traditional rain or flood,
That.
but not
Yes,
unnatural.
exactly.
Because everything works b'derech hateva, right? God always does, even the miracle He does b'derech hateva, in the rules of nature, and that could be how it makes sense.
Agreed. Hamayim, the waters, tipcha. This is going to focus us back and complete the thought of Vayigberu. Instead of decreasing, the waters were still getting mightier, and there was no immediate expectation for Noach that conditions would improve, as denoted by the closing shape of the corresponding directional reading mark. So the waters continue to strengthen and strengthen. Noach is commanded to make an ark, bring animals in, bring food in. He is told that God is going to create water that's going to go for 40 days and 40 nights, but he's not told how long after that things are going to take to settle down. So we see this ever-rising torrent of water and this ever-increasing amount of destruction, and Noach does not have a sense of when this truly is going to end. Al haaretz, over the earth, again with stability. And we'll notice that shamayim and eretz are usually getting the stabilizing notes, the etnachta or the sof pasuk. Number 3, although the flood rain from above had ceased, the fountains from below, which were scattered over the earth, still produced large amounts of water after the 40 days of precipitation, as stressed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So despite the fact that we're not getting rain from above anymore, we're still getting water flowing in from down below, And that's why we have this strengthening trend of destruction underneath the water.
And that's stabilizing?
We're just the only thing that's stable now is the heaven and the earth. Now the surface of the earth is no longer stable. Right?
But that's why on Haaretz has a stabilizing note.
But the core of the earth, like the ball, but the surface of the earth, I believe, is not stable.
So the shape of Etnachta, number one, points us upwards. We have something that's going up. So very interesting here that we're talking about water continuing to come up on the Etnachta. And the thing that we're talking about that's being stable is in fact the continuing tide of destruction from the flood. Even though we have no more rain coming down, we have the force of the flood continuing. That's the stability here.
Right.
That the flood
It's
that
the
the
new
flood
norm.
that the flood is still continuing despite the fact that we have no rain.
And that's stabilizing. Or that's the
And
new norm.
that was the new norm, so that's what's
So
continuing.
why
That's the
it's
stability.
that. Okay.
Hamishim, 50, with a mercha. So this is going to slightly include what's come before, but mostly focuses forward. Number 4, after 50 days, when the flood was still in full strength, Noach started to worry about the sufficiency of his supplies in the ark, as shown by the directional shape of the reading mark. 50, going forward, is going to lead into umeat with a tipcha, which is going to focus back, and 100 of. We noted before that the unique interpretation that this parish gives us is that when we have a compound number, 15, 5 and 10, 13, 3 and 10, 150, chamishim u'me'at, 50 and 100, there is a separation between the 50 and the 100 that comes after it. It's not the number 150, it's 50 and then another 100 up on top of the 50. So Noach starts to worry, do I really have enough supplies after 50 days? And then he waits another 100 days and still has to worry about even more about the supplies. So how much he worried for 50 days, and then, okay, he didn't complain at the next 50, but when it got to 100, when it got to twice that 50, he obviously had to panic even more. Noach waited patiently, and 100 of more days passed before he could notice any improvement of the outside conditions. However, the reserves were almost unchanged, as specified by the closing shape of the reading mark. So, despite the fact that it's 100 days after the 50 that he was originally worried, he still seemed to have enough. Because the 50 and the 100, they close each other off. Worried about supplies, still worried about supplies, but it's double that amount of time later. Yom, day, with the stabilizing Sof Pasuk. After that period, a day that followed brought new changes on the horizon and boosted Noach's hopes and morals. So the day after that 150th day is when Noach all of a sudden sees something new happening. And B, we have a note on 100. This indicates that heavenly blessing, the heavenly blessing in the ark supplies. That it seemed to be an endless amount, despite the fact that he thought it might not be sufficient.
It's like Shmuel with the Amana and the cruise of oil.
And we'll read the pasuk. Vayigdaru hamayim al haaretz 50 u'me'at yom. And that's the end of the chapter. We're going to notice that sometimes the chapter divisions seem illogical. Here we've got a logical division, but chapter divisions were in fact not a Jewish construct, a Torah construct. There was a a publisher in Venice who was a publisher of Christian Bibles, who got permission to publish a Jewish Bible in, I believe, the 1400s, with and he added this concept of chapters and verses, and he did the numbering system. We very quickly adopted it for its convenience sake, because it's very easy to refer back with a reference point like this. But you will see that every so often a chapter ends in a very illogical